The old woman sat rocking in the rocking chair, her gaze fixed on the flickering flames in the fireplace. The flames danced and flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. "They say he came from the woods," she rasped, her voice a dry whisper. "A creature of shadow and despair, born from the nightmares of countless children." She paused, her eyes gleaming with a malevolent light. "He feeds on fear, you see, the terror of the unknown, the dread of the unseen. The more afraid you are, the stronger he becomes." She leaned closer, her breath hot and stale. "He's been here for centuries, lurking in the shadows, waiting for his prey. He's claimed many victims over the years, their screams echoing through the empty halls of this house." A low growl rumbled from beneath the bed, a sound that made the old woman smile. "He's hungry now," she chuckled, her eyes fixed on the space beneath the bed. "He's been waiting for a long time." She reached out a gnarled hand, stroking the air above the bed. "Such sweet fear," she murmured. "Such delicious terror." The old woman continued her story, her voice a chilling blend of fact and fantasy. "They tried to banish him, of course," she said. "The priests, the hunters, they all tried to rid this house of the evil that clung to it. But he's cunning, that one. He hides in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike." She paused, her eyes gleaming with a cruel amusement. "He's patient, you see. He can wait for decades, centuries even, for the perfect victim." The flames in the fireplace crackled and hissed, casting dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and writhe. The old woman watched them, a cruel amusement playing on her lips. "He's not just a monster, you know," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "He's a part of this house, woven into its very fabric. He is the darkness, the fear, the despair." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "He's waiting for you now, child. He's been waiting for a long time." The old woman chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. "He's hungry." Those were the words of his grandmother so many years ago, a bone-chilling warning. Years later, Michael would reminisce about his childhood home and would choose to return one last time. As he entered the house, the floorboards groaned a mournful tune as Michael crept down the hallway, the flickering gas lamp casting long, dancing shadows that mimicked the frantic pounding of his heart. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of moonlight piercing the gloom, each one a tiny, malevolent eye watching his every move. He hadn't been back to this house in decades, not since the night the monster under the bed had come for him. He reached his childhood bedroom, the air thick with the scent of forgotten dreams and long-buried fears. The room was unchanged, the wallpaper peeling, the faded floral pattern a grotesque mockery of childhood innocence. The four-poster bed loomed over him, a monstrous silhouette against the dim light. He forced himself to approach, his gaze drawn to the space beneath, the inky blackness a gaping maw. It was here, in this very spot, that he had first glimpsed it, a fleeting shadow, a flicker of movement, a low, guttural growl that had sent shivers down his spine. He remembered the terror, the nights spent huddled against the wall, whispering pleas to the darkness. He'd built a fortress of pillows and blankets, a futile attempt to shield himself from the unseen menace. But it had always been there, a constant, insidious presence, whispering promises of unimaginable horrors. As an adult, he dismissed it as childish imagination, a product of overactive fear glands. But now, standing in the room again, the old terrors returned, amplified by the weight of years of suppressed memories. He felt a cold dread creeping into his bones, a primal fear that defied logic. He tried to light the gas lamp on the bedside table, but the flame sputtered and died, plunging the room into suffocating darkness. Panic clawed at his throat. He fumbled for the matches, his hands trembling uncontrollably. Finally, the lamp flickered back to life, casting a sickly yellow glow around the room. But the relief was short-lived. In the corner, huddled beneath the dresser, lay a single blood-stained shoe, his mate nowhere to be found. Michael's blood ran cold. He knew that shoe. It was his. A low growl rumbled from beneath the bed, a sound that seemed to vibrate through his very bones. He stumbled back, his eyes wide with terror. The darkness under the bed seemed to shift, to writhe, as if something immense was stirring within. He had to get out. He had to escape. But as he turned to flee, he saw it. A long, sinuous shadow slithered out from under the bed, snaking across the floor towards him. It was impossibly thin, yet it seemed to writhe with a malevolent life of its own. He screamed, a raw, animalistic sound that echoed through the empty house. He scrambled towards the door, but the shadow was faster. It lunged, wrapping itself around his legs, pulling him down with a sickening thud. He thrashed, clawing at the unseen coils, but it was useless. The shadow tightened, squeezing the life from his limbs, the air from his lungs. He could hear it now, a low, guttural chuckle, a sound of pure, malevolent glee. It was the same sound he had heard as a child, the sound of the monster under the bed. He tried to scream again, but only a strangled gurgle escaped his lips. The shadow tightened, crushing his bones, extinguishing the last flicker of life in his eyes. The monster under the bed had finally claimed its victim.